Fireworks night. Astoria, a riverside town in the Columbia in Oregon, has a habit that is both gentle and lonely. Every 4th of July, fireworks bloom in the sky, but fog rolls in from the ocean so thick that the red and violet shatter, then get swallowed in seconds. The hill leading up to 1127, the blue-green wooden house of the Tran family, is often drowned in that cold vapor. That night, at 11:58, Grandma Huang said she heard the wind chimes knocking on the back porch. Mom Lena, Vietnamese name Linth, slept fitfully after a full shift at Lily Nails. Dad Danny Dang said he was going to check a friend's boat at the dock because the wind might loosen the lines. Ethan, 12, buried himself in a video game with headphones clamped tight. No one knew when Hannah disappeared. Her window was cracked open, her phone lay on the sill like a fish struggling for air. The red scarf Grandma Huang had knit for her, the one Hannah wore that evening, was nowhere to be seen. Outside, fireworks popped in rhythm, then went silent. On the morning of July 5th, Astoria police got involved. Detective Jane Collins' short hair, sharp eyes asked questions in a steady, low register. Who last saw Hannah? Any conflicts recently? A boyfriend? Did she want to run away? No, Lena said, her voice trembling. She was preparing for a choir audition at school. She had a shift at the cafe this afternoon. Grandma Huang pressed her hands together, staring at the air between them, breathing rough. She smelled like water. River water. Collins took notes, her gaze drifting along the hallway where an old gray plastic camera hung from the ceiling, thick with dust, its cable drooping like an ancient thread. First suspicions. Danny returned at dawn, jeans wet and smelling of machine oil. He said the wind was strong and the mooring lines were jerking, so he stayed at the dock longer than expected. When Collins asked for his friend's name, he said, Mike Jensen. When she asked for a number, he fumbled with his phone, scrolling and re-scrolling. You can call Mike for me, right now, Collins said, half smiling. Danny dialed. It rang a long time. No answer. Mike often does not keep the phone on him, Danny said, jaw tightening. They checked Hannah's room. On the desk lay a cloth-bound notebook. Lena said it was a journal, but she never touched it. Collins pulled on gloves, opened it, flipped quickly. In June she found a pencil line scrawled in haste. If I disappear, remember to look in the place I hate most. What place is that? Collins asked. Ethan shrugged. Lena went pale. Hannah hates the basement. She is scared of mice. The basement at 1127 was dark, smelling of damp and rotting wood. A rope bulb swung. On shelves, plastic bins were stacked high. Lena pointed to a wine-colored suitcase, saying it belonged to her mother Huang, brought many years ago. At the very bottom was a cardboard box labeled Henry Camcorder, 2001 to 2005 in marker. Inside sat a silver mini DV camcorder and several old tapes, the corners labeled in Vietnamese. Cold spell, Nahi's birthday, Old Bridge. Collins arched a brow. Do you have a player for this at home? Lena shook her head. That cam was left by the previous owner. Since we bought the house, I have never watched them. The detective nodded, carefully bagging the tapes. I will have our tech unit convert them. Ethan watched, both excited and afraid. Grandma Huang sat on a chair by the sink, her thin fingers touching the red scarf in the pocket of her cardigan, Nihi's scarf. I knit it for her, so she won't be cold like the time by the riverbank. When was that, Grandma? Lena asked. Huang did not answer. The cafe and the blonde boy. Blue Finch on Commercial Street was where Hannah worked part-time. The owner Marlena showed Collins the security footage. On the afternoon of July 4th, Hannah worked from 3 p. to 8 p. Around 6:10 p. She spoke with a blonde boy in a dark blue hoodie. They sat in the corner, tense. Hannah tore open a sugar packet, twisting threads, her fingers shaking. The boy placed his hand flat on the table, not touching her. That is Tyler Reed, Marlena said. Same school as Hannah. He has been coming by to see her lately. Collins asked for an address. Marlena provided it, adding, Tyler's a good kid, but his mom, strict. worried about what people think. Tyler lived in a ranch-style house on the south side of town. Collins knocked and his mother, Ruth Reed, opened the door. Tyler is not home, she said coolly. If this is about that Hannah girl, you should talk to her family first. There is always something. Inside the house. I just want to hear Tyler explain the meeting yesterday, Collins said. Calm. Ruth stared straight into her eyes. He told me everything. He said Hannah was scared of someone in her family. But I do not want my son involved. Can you tell me who she was afraid of? Collins asked. Ruth gave a thin smile. Maybe the father. Maybe the grandmother. I heard she is not right. Hannah's journal. When Collins returned to the Foggy Hill house, Lena had set the table with chicken pho that no one touched. Collins asked for permission to read the journal more carefully. Lena pulled a shawl over her shoulders and nodded. June 15th. I feel like someone stands in my doorway every night. Smell of pork fat and river water on the air. Grandma says NHI, go to sleep, do not leave the house. I say, I am Hannah. She laughs, NHI is you. Don't be stubborn. June 22nd, I fought with Mom. She told me not to see Tyler anymore, not to let anything, long-term, happen. She says she does not want a repeat of the old thing in our family. I do not get it. What old thing? June 30th. Tyler says if I need safety, he can help me hide for a few days. I want to, but I am scared. There are too many eyes in this house. What old thing? Collins asked, looking up. Lena twisted the hem of her shirt. Back in Vietnam, our family once lost a child in a market. My mother is obsessed with protection. She locks doors, pulls curtains. Hannah got mad about it. Danny looked at his wife. You did not tell me about that fight on June 22nd. Lena did not answer. Ethan pulled the red scarf from his pocket and sniffed it. It smells like wet wood. Grandma Huang clucked her tongue. Wet wood, bridge wood. The old bridge trembles. Which bridge? Collins asked. Huang's lips moved. Megler Bridge. No. Wooden bridge. The bridge in the tape. In the tape, Collins repeated, recalling the box labeled Old Bridge. She wrote a note. When the tapes spoke. 2 days later, the tech unit sent back a hard drive. They would converted 4 mini DV tapes. Collins brought it to the Tran house and invited everyone to sit around the TV. Grandma Huang's hand trembled as she touched the old camcorder, like tapping a dust-coated memory. Tape 1, Nihai's birthday, 2003. A girl about 5, hair in a high ponytail, running around a different backyard with an apple tree. A Vietnamese man's voice, southern accent laughing, calling, NHI, look at daddy. The person filming might be Danny. But in 2003, they had not moved to Oregon. Lena stared at the screen, clutching her shirt. No, she whispered. That is my sister's house, Hallow, in California. We came to the U.S. in 2001 under family reunification. NHI was her daughter. Where is your sister now? Collins asked. Lena stayed silent. Grandma Huang breathed hard, fingers interlaced. Tape 2. Cold Spell, 2004. The camera wobbled across a small wooden footbridge over a ditch. The air was wet, frost on the grass. The same girl, NHI, stood on the bridge, dropping a twig into the water. A woman's voice, likely Hago's, NHI, come inside. The girl turned and smiled, one hand on the rail. The camera slipped, the image yawed, a clipped scream. Then the screen went black. After a beat, ragged breathing, splashing water. The camera person plunged down, the lens catching gray surface. A moment later, the image steadied, a faded red scarf snagged on a wooden post, shivering. Collins paused. Lena covered her mouth. Ethan stared at the tapes like they were wild animals. Danny spoke softly. Never told me this. Tape 3, Old Bridge, 2005. I was gone. The camera person, likely Heo, stood on the bridge, placing a small bouquet. Sobbing. An old, gnarled hand, so like Huang's, set down a new red scarf. Her voice, I am sorry, child. I could not hold you. Collins fast-forwarded. In one frame, Hagu's face came into focus. Sunken eyes, tight mouth. Behind her, a man stepped back, turning his face away. Danny. No. Someone else, shorter, curly hair. Collins noted. Unidentified male. Tape 4 had no label. The lens peered through a window into a room. Inside, Hago and Danny sat facing each other, arguing. You said you would take her swimming, you did not hold her hand. I only turned back to grab the scarf. You told her to stand still. She is 5, dang. Vietnamese and English tangled, voices rising. At the end, the door flew open and... Whoever held the camera maybe... Lena lowered it, panting. The room went still. Collins hit stop. Lena covered her face. Danny stood and walked onto the porch. Ethan eyed the stack of tapes as if they might bite. Why did you keep these and not say anything? Collins asked. Lena wiped her eyes. I wanted to forget. My sister, after the accident, she left California for another town. Then we lost touch. I did not know how to tell my kids. My mother, she was always afraid of a repeat. She kept seeing Hannah as NHI. Collins jotted down the layers of conflict. A child's death in the past. Adults haunted. Secrets buried. But where was Hannah? The smell of water and footsteps. On the night of July 8th, Lena dreamed of Hannah calling Mom. It sounded near and far, as if rising from under the house. Awake. She heard very light steps in the hall. Ethan slept soundly. Danny was nowhere. Grandma Huang sat in the dark at the bottom of the stairs, eyes wide. N.H. I came home, she whispered. She is wet? I am Hannah, Lena answered reflexively, then realized she would slipped into the old role. Where are you? Huang shook her head, but her finger pointed down, very gently. Basement. Lena flipped the light. The basement door was ajar. She opened it, and cold damp rolled up. On the wooden stairs, faint smudges like mud prints. On the cement floor, a wet ring in the corner like something had recently sat there. On the shelf, a few clean ovals in a sea of dust. Someone had taken something recently. In the morning, Lena told the others. Danny stiffened. You said something was sitting in the corner. She pointed. Ethan stared at the wet ring, then looked away. Collins suggested another search. They found, beneath an old wooden crate, a black plastic bag. Inside, a bottle of sleeping pills labeled Zolpidem, prescribed by a family doctor, patient name, Huang Tran, and another red scarf, new, with an embroidered H. Grandma's medication, Lena said, her voice dry. Collins looked at Ethan. Been down here lately. He shook his head too quickly. Lily nails. 2 weeks before Hannah vanished, the salon camera recorded a fight between mother and daughter. Collins watched it with Lena. The view from high in a corner, Hannah. Arms folded, face flushed. Lena pulling the blinds, saying something with lips pressed tight. The audio was unclear. Hannah grabbed a red scarf from a chair like the ones Huang knit, and threw it on the floor. Lena stooped to pick it up, shaking. Outside the glass door, an elderly figure hovered Huang, then slipped away. Collins slowed it down, confirming it was Huang. She had come at noon, quietly watching. Lena sat with her head in her hands. She follows me everywhere. Says guard your daughter. I am exhausted. You filled a prescription for her, Collins said. Lena nodded. The doctor wrote it. She can't sleep. Any missing pills lately? Collins asked. Lena hesitated. The bottle was opened a month ago. I thought there was plenty left. I did not check. Tyler speaks. Collins finally caught Tyler behind the school parking lot. He squinted at Hannah's name. I did not do anything, he said. I just wanted Hannah out of the house for a few days, until everyone calmed down. Why? Collins asked. Tyler shoved his hands in his pockets. Hannah said her grandma thought she was NHI. She said at night her grandma would shake her awake, make her recite a prayer in Vietnamese. One time her grandma took her to the basement and said only down there she was safe. She was scared. What about her parents? Collins asked. Tyler bit his lip. Her dad's often gone. Her mom, sometimes gentle, sometimes harsh. I think she was scared of her mom, too. What did you two talk about on July 4th? Collins asked. I told her if she wanted to go, I could drive. Her grandma was getting worse. She said she would text me after the fireworks. But she did not. Did you go to her house? Collins asked. Tyler shook his head. I waited by the river near the dock. She never came. Around midnight, I saw a figure cross a little wooden bridge over a drainage ditch nearby. I thought it was Hannah. I ran over. It was Mr. Danny. He did not see me. Collins wrote, what was he doing? He stared into the water for a while, then turned back. The attic of secrets. That evening, Collins returned to the Tran house. She spoke to Danny on the porch. The wind made the chimes clack. You went to the dock for the lines, Collins said, repeating his statement. But Tyler saw you at the drainage bridge, looking down into the water. Danny said nothing. After a moment he exhaled. I heard something. Like a splash. After what happened to NHI, I can't stand the sound of water. I thought Hannah might have slipped. He looked toward the dim river. I thought she might be there. Did you see anything? She asked. No. Did you know about those old tapes? She asked. Danny looked down. Yes. I saw them once. I hate them. But Lena kept them. I thought, if no one said anything, everything would sink on its own. And you and Heo? Collins asked quietly. Danny jerked, looking away. We got too close back then. Everything fell apart. I married Lena. We moved up here. I wanted a fresh start. Collins did not judge. She only nodded. Did Hannah know about NHI? She asked. No. At least not from me. Collins went inside and headed straight to the attic. She noticed a small hatch big enough for a cat, leading to the back eave. Dust on the frame had odd streaks, as if touched recently. Inside, among boxes, she found a low wooden chest. She opened it. A stack of small black notebooks. Not Hannah's, but Lena's. On the first page, 2006 Astoria. October 14th. Mother won't forgive me. She always looks at me like a replacement. I am not Hao, not NHI. I am Linfoff. The one who ran from rotten wood. December 1st. Dang won't throw the tapes away. I hide them. If I leave them, Mother will lose her mind. If I toss them, Dang will resent me. So I wedge them between us like a wall. Collins flipped. May 6th, 2007. The doctor says Mother shows early dementia. I asked for sleeping meds. I think they will help with the nightmares. She closed the notebook. At the bottom of the chest was a taped bundle, marked for H when grown. Maybe Hannah. She did not open it. She left it as is. The old ceiling camera. While sitting in the kitchen, Collins glanced up at the old ceiling camera she had noticed on day one. It was dusty, but the cable was still connected. Does it work? She asked. Danny shrugged. I have never turned it on. Collins fetched a step stool and carefully took it down. It was an early 2000s home camera recording to SD card. Oddly, inside the slot were not one, but two cards. Someone had slipped a thin one on top. With a reader on her laptop, Collins explored the second card. In it, a folder named BakeUP 202550704. A video file dated July 4th. Her heart kicked. She clicked. The image was milky with fog but legible. At 11:47 p. The back door cracked open. A small figure wearing a red scarf stepped onto the porch. Hannah. She stood a moment, looked back inside, then turned to leave. An old hand slid into the frame, settling on her shoulder. The hand trembled, but was firm. Hannah turned, said something, then nodded. The two moved out of frame. A minute later, the door opened again. The elderly woman Huang returned, shut the door, slid the bolt. Collins kept scrubbing. At 11:58, Danny crossed the hall, glanced at the door, then continued through the living room and out of sight. At 12:05, Ethan peeked out, took a few steps toward the door, stopped, backed away, and disappeared. Collins froze the frame and looked at everyone. Lena covered her face. Danny stood rooted. Ethan shook. Huang stared into the middle distance, lips fluttering. I took her down. Down is safe. Down? Where, Grandma? Lena asked. Strangled. To where water can't take her, Huang whispered. The dry ditch and the rotten shed. Behind 1127, past a patch of wild raspberries, a narrow path led to a drainage ditch. It connected to the river but ran low in summer. Beside it stood a rotting wooden shed the previous owner used to store nets. Inside, the boards smelled of mold. On the dirt floor were old drag marks. Collins crouched and shone a flashlight into a corner. A red fiber snagged on a splinter. Hannah was here, she said softly. Lena clutched a post, barely standing. Collins called the forensic team. They found a tiny patch of dried blood on the wood. Not enough to prove something horrific, but enough for everyone to look at each other in fear. You took Hannah, Collins said to Huang. To do what? Huang blinked, then shook her head like a child. Keep her, so water can't take her. I put her to sleep. I gave her pills so she would not be scared. I tied her hands so she would not wander, so she would not go down to the water. Her voice shook, then broke. Back then, I fell. I could not hold her. This time I held on. Lena screamed, but it fractured into sobs. Danny went rigid as stone. Ethan held his head, mumbling, I did not know. I did not know. You did not know what? Collins asked, stepping closer but soft. Ethan burst into tears. I did not know she would not wake up. I opened the door. I saw Hannah lying there. I tried to pull her to a dry spot. I wiped her. I tied her back, but loose. I put the scarf over her. I heard Dad come home. I got scared. I dragged her behind the shed. I thought in the morning Mom would find her. I did not think. The shed fell silent. Outside, a gull rasped. Lena collapsed. Danny placed a shaking hand on his son's shoulder. Truth. Like layers of fog. The lab reported that the red fiber and the wood stain carried Hannah's DNA. The drug trace in the dried patch matched zolpidem. Ligature marks on the wrists hinted in an earlier photo Hannah had posted, where her forearm showed a faint, odd bruise now made sense. No signs of other violence besides minor scrapes. Along with Huisong's broken recollection and Ethan's panic, the picture emerged. In her obsession to keep her granddaughter, Huisong had given Hannah pills, led her to the shed, tied her so she would not run, hoping she would sleep safely away from the water that takes. Ethan, sensitive to the grown-ups, constant fighting and thinking he was helping, dragged Hannah to another corner and clumsily concealed her. That night, in the damp chill and the sedative, Hannah stopped breathing. They found Hannah's body in the ditch a short way from the shed, snagged on weeds below the little wooden bridge. Summer water ran low, so she had not drifted to the river. The red scarf was wrapped at her wrist, the H soaked through. Lena did not cry out loud. She sat in the living room, with one hand on her daughter's journal. Danny stood on the porch, watching fog thread through the Megler Bridge like an invisible ruin. Ethan sat next to Huang. She held his hand, eyes fixed on some broken shelf in her memory. Collins wrote it up, negligent homicide for Huang, tampering with a scene for Ethan, parental responsibility review for Danny and Lena. But she knew the law could only slice a thin piece off what happens inside houses, with walls hung with family photos and old cameras dangling overhead. Letters delivered late. Lena opened the taped bundle labeled 4H when grown. Inside were letters in Vietnamese sprinkled with English, paper yellowed with time. At the top, from How to Lena. The first line read, If one day you have a child and she asks about me and NHI, tell the truth. Don't let a red scarf circle their necks. Lena read in silence. Pacquiao wrote about cold seasons in a California farm town, the wooden bridge, the day NHI fell, the guilt, the anger poured on Danny. Pacquiao left, changed her number, asked for no forgiveness. Some things are not taken by water, she wrote. We offer them up with our own hands. That night, Lena gave the letters to Collins, asking for copies to keep, the rest to go into the file. Collins nodded. Do you want me to connect you with a counselor? She asked. Lena smiled wearily. I will find one. In Astoria, everyone knows already. The hearing. The Clatsop County Court held a custody and confinement hearing for Huang. She sat small in a gray cardigan, eyes cloudy. A public defender described early dementia, intent to protect, lack of murderous purpose. The prosecutor spoke of consequences, of recurrence, of obsession, of guardian duty. Ethan was summoned but excused from public testimony. He told the investigator and a young therapist, I just wanted things to be normal in the morning. I saw Mom and Dad fight so much, I thought if Hannah rested one night, everyone would be happier tomorrow. The sentence drew the air out of the room. Collins sat in the back, fist tight, knowing happier tomorrow would echo in her head for a long time. The court ordered Huang to a secure medical facility for psychiatric care, not a criminal jail. Ethan to counseling, community service, and juvenile supervision. Danny and Lena to family education classes and social services oversight for a period. No one felt justice complete, but it was what could be done in a world where every day new fog layers over the old. The house after the wind stills. A month later, Lena took the old camera off the ceiling and boxed it. She did not want any more silent eyes in the house. She tied all the red scarves with a white ribbon and labeled the drawer, Do Not Open. Danny cleared the rotten shed and burned the broken planks. Smoke rose and merged with sea fog. He stopped drinking. He started taking Ethan to the docks at dawn to fish, teaching him the difference between the slap of water on hull and the flick of a fish. Listen closely, he said. Water speaks differently. Ethan spoke less, but each time he crossed the drainage bridge, he set a flat stone on a post. For my sister, he whispered. Sometimes he reached into empty air, as if trying to untie a knot he had made on the night of July 4th. Lena hung a photo of Hannah smiling in her choir uniform in the living room. Beside it, the audition notice Hannah had tucked in her journal. Hacko's letters were sealed in a new envelope marked Tell Ethan when he is ready. The riverbank and those who remain. One autumn morning, Collins jogged along the river. There was less fog. She looked at the Megler Bridge, strung across the water like a green tendon. She thought about the old tapes, the woman named Hayo wherever she was now, the red scarves knit by a pair of elderly hands in obsession. She thought about how immigrant families carry memories that do not translate, folding them into small objects, until one day they burst out. She emailed a colleague in California to pull an old case, a child accident, in 2004's in a northern farm town. A few days later the reply came, a brittle local news brief on microfilm, the name NHIVO. No trace of how in later records. Collins printed the brief and pinned it to her closed cases board. Not as a trophy but as a reminder. Every secret has its own sound if you wait long enough to hear. Things left unsaid. At night, Lena sat with Danny on the porch. They spoke in fragments, slipping from English into Vietnamese when certain words were not soft enough to carry meaning. Do you resent my mother? Lena asked. Danny shook his head. Number. I resent what made her so afraid she killed our child. Do you resent me? She asked. Sometimes. But if I resent you, I have to resent the me from 2005, the one holding the camera and not rushing in. They fell quiet. The chimes sounded. Hannah had bought them last summer at a craft fair. On the metal fin, a tiny H was etched, easy to miss in the dim fog. Tomorrow we will take Ethan early to school, Lena said. I will swing by Bluefinch. Marlena kept the mug Hannah liked. I want to bring it home. Danny nodded. Then we will go see Mom. They visited the care facility where Huang stayed. She sat by a window, eyes on a stand of birch trees. Lena placed her hand in her mother's. Huang smiled, very gently. Is NHI grown yet? Mom, Lena said. Soft. Call me Lynch. I am Lynch. Huang tilted her head, searching her memory. Linth, she repeated, and suddenly smiled, like she had found a familiar stone. Ethan stepped forward and set a small pine cone in Huang's palm. One he would picked up by the river. For you, Grandma, he said. She looked at it, pressed it to her forehead as if receiving a blessing, then murmured, Don't let the water take... No, Ethan answered. We are going to learn to swim. Mom will learn. Dad's teaching. Huang smiled. Somewhere in her mind, perhaps the shaky wooden bridge turned into a blue pool, filled with laughter instead of screams. Letter to the one who is gone. At night, Lena wrote to Hannah and tucked the letter into her daughter's unfinished journal. My Hannah, I read everything you wrote. I know the place you hated most was the basement, but you left a clue so we would find you, even if late. I think you meant, do not hide from the dark corners in our own house. I hear you. I spoke with Grandma. She called me Lynch. Just for a moment, but it was light. I think you would smile. I will tell Ethan about you every Saturday. In Vietnamese and then in English, so he remembers your voice. I won't knit red scarves anymore. I will knit ones, the color of sea, the river on a sunny day. Sleep now. Nights in Astoria still have fog, but I will turn on the porch light. If you knock, I will open right away. She folded the letter and set it by her daughter's photo. Life and the retelling. A year later, Astoria launched fireworks against a bank of fog again. On the hill at 11:27, 3 people stood in silence. Danny, Lena, Ethan. They did not count down to 10 like they used to. They just watched. The red flares dissolved into gray and were gone. The chimes whispered like spoons tapping a cup. At the facility, Huyang sat at the window with the dried pine cone in her hand, mumbling a prayer in Vietnamese braided with English that no one could quite make out. The nurse said she had slept peacefully, no longer calling NHI. She had said, Lynn, then smiled. Ethan wrote an essay for English class, titled, A Place? He wrote about the shed that was torn down, about the small wooden bridge over the ditch now replaced by a low, solid slab of concrete. I am learning to hear water, he typed. Not to find fish, but to remember that the things taken away still leave a sound. The teacher commented, Beautiful, sad piece. Would you like to meet with the counselor? Ethan checked. Yes. He was not ashamed. He knew speaking is a way of keeping. At Blue Finch, Marlena framed a small photo on the wall. Hannah in an apron, grinning, holding a mug with a hairline crack in the glaze. Below it, a handwritten tag read, For H, come back when it is less foggy. Customers asked what it meant. Marlena just smiled. It is always foggy here. Sometimes it is less. The ends of threads. That winter, Collins transferred to Salem. Before leaving, she stopped by 11:27. Lena made tea. Danny handed over a small bag. Inside lay the last unused red scarf. Please take it, Danny said. Not as evidence. An ending. Collins held the scarf, hesitating. I do not know where to put it. Put it at your work, Lena said. To remember that some cases do not need a monstrous villain for someone to die, and to remember the culprit can be the weakest person made weak by illness, by memory, by love twisted the wrong way. The rest is for the living, learning to wear scarves of other colors. Collins smiled, tired but warm. She tucked the scarf into her glove box, amid papers and a stubby pencil. On the Megler Bridge, fog strung out and wind pressed hard. She drove slowly and thought about a 17-year-old's laugh in a cafe, a 12-year-old boy learning to own his mistake, a mother learning to forgive herself, a grandmother counting stitches in a chipped mind. In Astoria, the fog will return. But on that house on the hill, the porch lights will click on earlier each evening, and if someone walks by and listens hard, they might hear the chimes barely touch, like 2 spoons kissing the rim of a porcelain cup. The small sound of life continuing. The end,